Ladies and gentlemen, aviation enthusiasts and curious minds alike, welcome to the thrilling mini-series that will take you soaring through the skies called What Makes This Plane Great. In this episode, we are going to be talking about an aircraft that despite being rushed into production and having engine issues, it has to be one of the best bombers ever built. That plane is the American four-engine heavy bomber, the Boeing B-29 Superfortress. So, what makes one of the most important aircraft of World War II great? Well, it was one of the most advanced aircraft of the Second World War. It was the only aircraft of the war that had a pressurised cabin and remote control gun turrets. The pressurised cabin allowed the B-29 to reach altitudes of nearly 32,000 feet at speeds of nearly 360 miles per hour, and its analogue computer-controlled fire control system allowed one gunner and a fire control officer to direct four remote machine gun turrets that were armed with 250 caliber machine guns each. Plus, he had two 50 caliber machine guns and sometimes one 20mm cannon in the tail. The B-29 Superfortress could fly higher than the majority of the Japanese aircraft, and it could carry ordnance of up to 20,000 pounds. While they would only be used in combat against the Japanese, one early B-29 named Hobo Queen flew to different airfields in the UK as part of a disinformation and propaganda campaign to fool the Germans into thinking they would be used to bomb Germany. Another great thing about the B-29 is that with its later upgraded variant, the B-50 Superfortress, it could perform a variety of different roles and missions at both day and night. They were used for air-sea rescue, electronic intelligence gathering, air-to-air refueling, weather reconnaissance, photo reconnaissance, cargo carrier, trainer, television transmission, and even as a mothership to carry smaller experimental aircraft, like the Bell X-1. And they use different technologies and systems like different radar technologies, fire control systems, and different armament configurations. The B-29 was used by the RAF in the 1950s under the name B-1 Washington, and a couple of these were sent to the Royal Australian Air Force. The Soviets, who were lagging behind in four-engine bomber development, captured a few B-29s that made emergency landings in Russia, and they then copied these B-29s to make their own version called the Tupolev Tu-4. These inferior Russian copies were used by both the Russian and Chinese air forces, and it went on to be the first Russian aircraft to drop a nuclear weapon. The main great thing that makes the B-29 Superfortress great was the sheer amount of destruction it caused against Japan. When the Americans captured and converted bases in the Mariana Islands, the Superfortresses had the range to reach mainland Japan, and that, combined with the fact it could carry up to 20,000 pounds of ordnance, meant that the B-29s could perform a campaign on some of the most destructive bombing raids of the war. This included dropping naval mines to blockade Japan and conducting firebombing raids on major cities that are considered some of the most destructive raids in combat history. As most of us already know, the B-29's shining moment was when two modified B-29s dropped the atomic bombs on Japan. The Enola Gay dropped Little Boy on Hiroshima, and Boxcar dropped Fat Man on Nagasaki. And not only did these nuclear bomb attacks signal the end of World War II, it changed world history. And the B-29 Superfortress remains the only aircraft to use nuclear weapons in conflict. A quick thing I'll mention is that once Japan surrendered, B-29s were used to drop food, medicine and clothes onto Japanese prisoner of war camps to save many American lives. The last great things I can think of to say about the Superfortress are that despite being more expensive to make than the whole Manhattan Project, which created the nuclear bomb, it served the US very well. It played a big part in ending the war in the Pacific and the Second World War as a whole. Plus, it served throughout the Korean War too. However, with the B-29s in Korea, they were too vulnerable to the MiG-15s, so they ended up mainly serving supply interdiction roles in night missions. And that's it for this thrilling journey through the skies. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell so you can stay up to date with my aviation content, etc. Check out the two videos at the end, or my CD reviews, or even the playlists I've created. Cheers.